Well, I think, Peter, that you have to have a conversation with your heirs and explain to them what you've done, what you're trying to do, and be totally transparent.
We are on the precipice of what has been dubbed the Great Wealth Transfer, an estimated 70 to 90 trillion dollars transitioning generations. But will everything go as smoothly as we hope? Or will there be some hiccups, hangups, and additional expenses that we do not anticipate along the way? Well, here to talk about that and how to make sure that your wealth transfers efficiently and effectively is John Kuykendall, founder, president of Gulf Coast Financial Services. And of course, Gulf Coast Financial has been named best of the best in financial services 10 straight years and running by the readers of the Lake City Reporter. So, John, we always appreciate your perspective, helping us stay financially focused. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Peter. It's great to be here. Great topic. There is a lot of money that's going to be transferring to a generation that doesn't have a lot of education about financial matters. We've done a very poor job in educating the younger set.
We need to have more conversations with them. They need to learn the realities of money, right?
Right. I mean, we need to understand, they need to understand the consequences of when we inherit this, what's going to happen, what are going to be the consequences to me, taxes, et cetera. But also, how am I going to use that money for my retirement and for my good without just going out and buying that Ferrari that I've always wanted, and taking or quitting work and taking that long trip. Um, it's a different generation, Peter.
Well, and in all fairness, John, on the other side of this, the baby boomer generation that has built and accumulated this wealth that is thought and intended to transfer over the next 20 to 30 years, maybe we need to have some conversations with them about the reality of where that money might transfer to, because a lot of that has not even paid income tax yet. And unfortunately, I think a lot of that will end up transferring to the IRS and the nursing care facilities.
Well, that's right. I mean, you got to remember that the government is your partner in your IRA and your 401k. They own part of that money, and they're going to get theirs as it transitions out. And that you're right, Peter. I think as we move through this cycle, and it's a fairly long cycle. I mean, we're talking about the next 20, 30 years. People are living longer. So I think you're going to see that, you're going to be a lot more people dying at 100 plus. And you're going to see that because of inflation and healthcare costs and all the things that are going to transpire, that maybe even though you think right now that you have a lot of money saved, you don't have it in the long run.
Well, again, we are talking with John Kuykendall, founder and president of Gulf Coast Financial Services. And you need to have a plan formulated, ladies and gentlemen. That financially focused written retirement income plan is a key component in planning. And of course, you're always welcome to give them a call, 386-755-9018, if you hear anything on the program that is of concern or interest or importance to you, or to get your financially focused written retirement plan put together, 386-755-9018. 386 755 9018. So there's kind of two schools of thought on both ends of this generational shift, John. For those baby boomers who have built and accumulated, I think there's a large number of them, kind of like my own father, who said, his intention was to bounce his last check. And on my end of this, I want my parents to spend their money. I told my dad, no problem. I want you to spend your money. Just make sure it's the last check that you need to write.
Right.
But then there's the other side of the baby boom generation that it is of high importance to them to transfer some values and a positive, impactful legacy. And on the other side of the receiving generation, I think there's a number of us that are maybe counting down the days till they can count the money, right? And so we do need to have this reconciliation of what are the realities and what are the expectations on both sides of this. It's not just the money moving. It's the important conversations and the values that transfer with the value.
Well, I think, Peter, that you have to have a conversation with your heirs and explain to them what you've done, what you're trying to do, and be totally transparent. There's as you said, there's one segment that will go to you and say, I'd like my inheritance now. But and I have had clients that have come to me and said, my son or my daughter has come to me and they would like their inheritance. What do I tell them? Well, we don't know how much their inheritance is going to be. It could be none or it could be a large sum. But until we actually pass away, there's no value that I can give you as far as how much you should give them. And there's the other, as you said, I have a lot of clients whose heirs have said, look, we want you to enjoy the money, do what you got to do. And if there's any left over, we'll be very happy with it. Now, what I've done is I've sat down with my two boys and I've explained to them what I have, how it's set up, and how it's going to be divided. And so the documents are in place, already done, and they know that when I pass away, this is what happens. How much they get, how much their stepmother gets, and et cetera. It's all laid out in a plan. And that's my estate plan. And I think everybody should have one so that they can at least understand, the heirs can understand what I'm trying to do and how I'm going to pass it on.
I think there's also some hesitancy to do the planning in the first place, John. I mean, we all would like to pretend that we're Superman or Superwoman and it's never going to happen to us, that we're invincible. We all would like to think we're not going to have those healthcare kind of events that are costly and do require planning. But also there's this element where if we've got two or three children, one of them may be less than competent or trustworthy with the money, and so we don't have any conversations because we fear what that one might do with the money if it lands in their laps.
Well, I think you're right, Peter. And in that case, maybe we need a trust because a trust will set money aside and you can designate it from the grave how that person gets their money or who's responsible for giving it to them. So a trust in some sorts of situations where we have special needs, and it could be a disabled child, it could be a child who has a drug or alcohol problem. As you said, we don't want to give them all the money up front, but we'd like to give them money along at certain milestones in their age. And that's certainly one of the reasons we need a trust. In Florida, if you don't have that situation, then you at least need the will, the power of attorney, health surrogate form, and the living will. Those four documents will get you through in Florida.
Lack of estate planning, though, John, a pretty striking problem. A shocking number of us have not done our essential documents. And this is not a recommendation of any type. We don't know the specifics of any person's individual situation,
Nope.
but there are kind of essential legal documents that need to be in place in order for the estate, whatever the value is, to be executed pretty seamlessly, or at least as smoothly as possible.
Well, I think, Peter, we have a tendency to want to avoid lawyers. I mean, it's just a profession. You know, what's a thousand good lawyers at the bottom of the sea? Good start.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Either that or they can be our best friends, right? Like they're
yeah,
an important role in this.
they really do, and they charge a fee, which is fair, but we need to make sure that the documents are drawn right. I am amazed at the number of people I sit with each week, and I say, do you have your estate documents done? And they say, no, we've been meaning to, but we've been procrastinating. Or, it's a blended family and they're torn between the husband doesn't want to talk to the wife about how to divide the money, and the wife doesn't want to talk to the husband about how to get the money out. So it's just a situation where we need to sit down, have those conversations, and for gosh sakes, call an attorney and have the documents drawn. The only way that you're going to do it is to know that they're legally drawn, is to have a licensed attorney draw them for you.
We also, of this 70 to 90 trillion dollars, John, I would think a large group of people within the category here that will be transitioning assets have not yet paid income tax
Mm-mm.
on that money that transfers. And then a much smaller segment, but probably a larger value, are those that have and will have an amount that encounters estate taxes. Even if they are not there today, over the next 10 to 15 years, those assets could grow. The value of a family business can grow. The value of a real estate portfolio can grow. So even if we're not there today, individuals who either have today or will have enough that they encounter estate taxes, a significantly more costly issue. And of that money, I've seen estimates that 30 to 50% of it could end up going to the IRS.
Well, that's right, Peter. Think of a large farm and the value of the real estate and having that family farm. It's like Yellowstone on TV. We got so much tax that we have to sell the property in order to pay the tax. So those are things. But the thing you got to remember, Peter, is it's 13 million today, but there was a proposal to bring it back to 1.5 million. So, it can change. That's legislative change that we have to be aware of. And over the next 20, 30 years, it is going to change. And as the government needs more money, they will make changes. The other thing we have to remember is that this generation, the boomers that are going to be, passing on now, are the ones that didn't have any option except 401ks and IRAs. When they started saving money, there wasn't a Roth. The Roths came later. The Roths weren't really sold or explained. Everybody said defer now because the taxes will be cheaper in retirement. And taxes aren't cheaper. I mean, we know that. So you got to remember there's going to be a large debt that's going to be passed that the heirs are going to have to pay for. Because as they pull those IRAs out over that 10-year period that the Secure Act calls for, they're going to have to pay taxes on the money as they pull it out. So it could throw them in a higher tax bracket if they're in over 65 and on Medicare and Social Security. A lot of other implications. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to be affected by the transfer of our wealth and how we transfer it.
Well, I know Florida particularly, and there are a few other states may be good because at least we can alleviate the state tax on income. But tax planning certainly has to be a part of this conversation about the legacy and the wealth transfer. Business succession planning. If we are charitably inclined, John, gifting, giving, charitable intentions all need to be included and part of that planning process to have this transition go as effectively as possible.
Well, that's right. And if you're charitable minded and you're going to pass your money on your heirs, you want to make sure that they are also charitable minded and that what you want done with the money is given to the charities that you want. And that needs to be spelled out in your planning also. But you got to remember that Florida, while we don't have a state income tax and the governor is trying to cut back the real estate taxes, I'm not sure exactly how we make our money down here, but
Tourism.
somehow
Tourism.
somehow we're paying the bills. So it's a great state. I got to tell you, I love it down here. But the biggest problem is that I don't think that people want to have the conversation with their heirs and beneficiaries about passing money on.
Mhm.
And so we've made it our goal this year as we meet with all of our clients. Every time we meet with them, we ask them about the estate planning. We help them set up an appointment with an attorney. We help them get those documents and then bring them back so I have a copy of them. And I think that is the only way I'm going to get them to move. Otherwise, they just keep procrastinating.
Yeah, coordinating efforts on behalf of your professionals or with your professionals on your behalf, rather.
Yeah.
The legal aspect, the financial aspect, the tax aspect, all of those have to coordinate and communicate in order to have the most effective plan possible. And then, John, from the financial side of things, and once again, this is in no way a recommendation of any specific type of product or strategy, but there are certain asset classes that are more efficient when they transition and transfer generationally than others. And those retirement accounts, John, specifically the tax deferred 401ks, IRAs, those are maybe very low on the list of how efficiently they transition and transfer.
Well, that's right. We still got the taxes. Now, Roth IRAs, they're great because we don't pay the taxes. The heirs, beneficiaries don't have any taxes. So Roths inherit tax free. Life insurance is certainly And upon the death, that's tax free. It's a great way to pass on generational wealth. Assets held in a revocable or irrevocable trust, they can pass avoiding probate and also maintain privacy. You know, and then you're right, the IRAs and the 401ks are probably the least efficient of ways to do that. But you're resident in real estate. You get the step up, company held stock. You get the step up. So there are some real values. I always cringe when people pass the real estate on early, and so, well, I want my kids to have my house. I just went ahead and titled it to them. And then you die 30 years later, they lost the step up, because it could be what was valued then. So certainly some assets are some investments are easier to pass on, more tax efficient than others.
Yeah, and you've got to compare not only your own tax situation, but your heirs' tax situation. How will
Right.
transferring assets impact their tax situation? But the reality, again, the expectation, 70 to 90 trillion dollars transitioning in this great wealth transfer generationally. The reality of it, John, a large portion of that, because of lack of or improper planning, may transition to the IRS or to the nursing care facilities. And we want to plan effectively to minimize or avoid that as much as possible.
Well, that's right, Peter. We want to do that, and procrastination isn't going to help us. It's not our friend in this case. But the thing is that let's hope, let's pray that that is the amount of money we have to pass on. I would like nothing more than to leave a large estate to my kids. But the reality is that inflation's hitting me every day. Every time I go to the grocery store, it costs more. My ice cream's now at $10 a carton.
Ooh.
You know, I like that, Bluebell cherry vanilla ice cream, and I can't buy it all the time.
Not a
Killing me.
recommendation of any brand in particular either, by the
No,
way.
I just love that. That's what I want. But well, that's the most expensive ice cream I've found.
Yep.
But it used to not be. It used to be $6. So, and then too, don't forget the OR, the long-term care, the fact that may have dementia. We may have, even if we don't have dementia, we're gonna have needs for people taking care of us because we just can't get around as well as we could. So hopefully the money will pass, but as we live longer, more and more of it's going to be tied up in healthcare.
Well, we have hit the peak of the bell curve of the baby boomer generation, hitting life expectancy numbers. And so from here forward, we will begin to hear more and more stories of wealth transfers to the next generation. Some of them will be successes. Others will be less than successful, unfortunately. A lot of that will be due to lack of planning or lack of understanding of the planning that is necessary. But that is something that we want to help you avoid. And if you would like to also avoid and have your story be a success, having a lasting positive impact, vision, and goals that transfer along with the wealth and the dollar value, then put a plan together and have those conversations. And John Kuykendall and the team from GulfCoast Financial Services, they are certainly here to help as a resource. Give them a call, 386-755-9018. 386-755-9018 as a beginning of this conversation. John, you have a discussion, and you do also offer, as a courtesy complimentary service, offer the ability to put together that financially focused written plan for retirement.
Well, that plan is really important, Peter, because it will help us be able to map out our future, be able to map out how we're going to be able to go forward. And it's also going to be the center stone of everything, the tax planning, the estate planning, all the other things we do are all going to be covered in that financially focused income plan.
And the reality, if you have a plan for your own lasting financial confidence, then more likely you will leave a positive legacy behind as well. So, helping to address all of those positive financial goals. Give them a call at GulfCoast Financial Services if you'd like to take John and the team and the family there up on the offer for that complimentary review, that discussion, that evaluation, the retirement planning strategy session, and your own financially focused written plan. 386-755-9018. That is 386-755-9018. Or visit online The website, GulfCoastFinancial.net, GulfCoastFinancial.net. John, always a pleasure talking with you each and every week here on Financial Focus.
Well, thank you, Peter, and let's hope we have a large amount of money to pass on.
Indeed. It would be fantastic. All right, John, do appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and tune in for more Financial Focus by visiting GulfCoastFinancial.net. The information presented on this program is provided for informational purposes only, without warranty of accuracy, completeness, or suitability for a particular purpose. This program is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. This information is general in nature and not specific enough to be construed as advice. You should not make any decision based on the information presented on this program without independent consultation with an appropriately licensed professional or competent advisor. Investment in securities or the market involves a potential risk for loss of principal. Trading, therefore, may not be suitable for all listeners. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing company. Withdrawals of growth from annuities may be taxable as ordinary income in the year it is taken. Individuals should review contracts for specific details of the product's features and costs. Early withdrawals may subject the owner to penalties, fees, or taxes. John Kuykendall is registered with and securities are offered through Kovac Securities Inc., member FINRA SIPC, found online at www.kovacsecurities.com. Advisory services are offered through Gulf Coast Financial Services Inc., a registered investment advisor in Florida. Gulf Coast Financial Services Inc. is not affiliated with Kovac Securities Inc. or Kovac Advisors Inc. Past performance is not indicative of future results. All investing involves risk. Investment decisions should be based on your own goals, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Due to various factors including changing market conditions and/or applicable laws, the content may no longer be reflective of current opinions or positions. Gulf Coast Financial Services Inc. has been named as Best of the Best since 2015 in the category of Best Financial Advisor in the Lake City, Florida area. The award was based on receiving the most votes in this category from a survey offered and tabulated by the Lake City Reporter. No direct or indirect compensation was provided to the Lake City Reporter and/or any raters, and the award is not contingent on future direct or indirect compensation offered to the newspaper and/or raters. Portfolio performance is not a criterion, and voting is open to any readers of the newspaper.